Welcome, pleasant good evening, everybody. Welcome and welcome to Swerve with me. I'm Miranda Innes, and I know it's been a while, but it's so good to be back. I took the month of February off because I had a lot of personal things to do for my family, and it just went longer than I expected, but it's so good to be back. So we have so much to catch up on. So as you come in, make sure you like and you share this live stream tonight because you're in for a very interesting conversation with a woman of God who has pretty much devoted her life to ministry. And you'll hear from ministry from the perspective of some intimate details about being a pastor's wife. And so make sure you invite a pastor's wife if you know one. Make sure you invite, if you know any pastors out there, listen, get them on this live stream tonight because I'm sure they're going to be able to identify with some similarities that they may have experienced in their personal ministries and their corporate ministry. Just as a woman being in ministry, we'll discuss some of that too. So I'm just giving you time to rally up everybody. Call your grandma, call your sister, call your auntie, your uncle, let them know Swerve with me is back, and we're excited to be back in your presence. So, tonight I have the distinct pleasure of introducing and presenting to many of you Pastor, I'm going to call her co pastor Eleanor Williams. She is the co pastor of Church of Christ Apostolic Ministries in Freeport, Grand Bahama, where she shares the pastorate with her husband, Bishop Patterson Williams. They have been in ministry for the past 25 years, so you know she has something to say. She's not a novice, she's been at it for a long time. She's also a PK. She's a pastor's kid. So she has grown up in ministry, and we're going to talk about growing up in ministry and did she foresee herself being in full-time ministry? And it's just going to get better and better as we go along. So all of you get out there, tell somebody we're live, and help me welcome to this live stream tonight, Pastor Eleanor Williams. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. Good evening, Miranda. It's certainly a joy. It's a pleasure. Good evening, Facebook world, YouTube, Periscope, and if you want anything else we didn't mention, it's certainly, I am excited and it's a joy to be here this evening.
Awesome. It's good to have you. Listen, I want to get right into it and begin to talk about ministry from the perspective you grew up in ministry and your father became, you weren't born into being a PK, but your father became a pastor. How did your life change once your father became a pastor? Did it change at all?
Well, to be honest with you, when I born, I met my father, a pastor already.
Okay.
So I was born in the matrimonial home where my father was already pastoring for about at least maybe 7 years before I was born, because I have 7 siblings that is older than myself.
Oh, wow. So what was that like? What was it
Well,
like being a PK?
growing up in a pastor's home is, at least our home, there was much discipline, first of all. There was order. There was transparency. Some people call it strictness. And there was line upon line. There were some things you do, and there's some things you don't do.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was like. But it definitely was a joy to be in the home because it was 9 of us. So it was like a big happy family. And we took whatever my dad says as Bible. We were happy children. We were joyous. There was never a time when I regret being a PK. I enjoyed my childhood living in a pastor's home.
Did you ever feel the pressure from outsiders with the expectation of you being a pastor's kid? Did you feel the pressure of that?
I think when I got into my high teens, when you begin to, you 16 to 18, when you begin to know who you are, know yourself, and the gifting and talents begin to come out of you. And there seemed to be it was like not just pressure from those outside. There were some things my parent taught was taboo. If a gift come up in you, to be a dancer is like, okay, you can only dance in church. I don't know, but no other place. So that was sort of a pressure coming right from within the home. You had to pick something to do as an adult or as a career that was very, that looked positive to them or looked religious to them. Let me put it like that.
Something traditional. So good night, Rumi Compazad. Good night, Shoba, Pressy, Wallace, Irma Bain, Esther Farrington. Good night to all of you. Hi, Renee. Make sure you let somebody know that we're live and we're about to get into some stuff that may shake some people up, but it's also going to help some people. I'm talking with Pastor Eleanor Williams. She is the author of the book, The Diary of a Pastor's Wife. And so the minute you hear diary, you know that's going to be something really intimate and revealing that's going to happen. So you grew up as a PK. You met your husband in the church who was also a PK. And
Yes.
and at what age did you two marry?
I got married at the age of 25 and he was 28.
Okay, so that's relatively not too young, and like kind of all right, middle of the road. So at 25, already in your career, you're married, and you two you were in Nassau at the time, or you married
Yes.
in Nassau?
I lived in Nassau all my life. The wedding was in Nassau, but he was from Freeport. So I had to relocate after our wedding. And I
So
was
what
in
was that
Freeport.
like? What was that
Definitely
like?
the transition was it wasn't easy for me because those of you on the line that's from Nassau, Nassau, we feel like we have it all when it comes to the stores, the shopping, the establishment. Growing up, going to college in the Bahamas, and now I had to pack my bags and come to Freeport, Grand Bahama, a new place. I had to adjust to a new job, a new set of people, friends. It was a little challenging because when I first came to Grand Bahama, people thought that I might have been too aggressive, too much like you look like where you come here to take over a job. I went through all of that when I came here to live.
Okay, yeah, that sounds kind of familiar. So you automatically, both of you were already in ministry, and so the transition was to the denomination that you were a part of in Grand Bahama, and both of you were involved in ministry. I believe your husband was an evangelist at the time. What was it like? I think you were probably married for about 8 years, when he came to you and say one day, um, honey, I feel this call to be a pastor. What was that like?
Well, to be honest with you, I don't remember a day he come in to tell me that. All I knew, he was in it.
So what do you mean? Come on, you have to qualify
When
that.
I say all I knew, he was in it. We attended the Church of God of Prophecy in Freeport. His father was the pastor at that time. And there was some transition with the church building, and the church was dissolved, meaning that the persons that attended that particular location, we had to disperse ourselves to the other 5 denominations. And at that particular time, my husband said that he was sensing the Lord was leading him to begin a ministry. But I never knew, okay, this thing gonna turn into a church and you're gonna have to build from scratch. I just thought he wanted to just use some time to begin like a ministry at the house. Like how some people have ministry at the house, but it never turns into a church. But I just
Okay.
watched this ministry in the house begin to grow and to grow, and the people, and then we began to venture out. And then I knew the pastorate was already upon us. I saw
So
it years back, but you try to deny it and you try to run from it. But I ran right into it.
you ran into it. That's an interesting statement. I ran into it. Let's roll it back a little bit and talk about the transition from being a part of a well-established denomination. And what was that like, telling the leaders that we're leaving to start a church? What was that like?
Well, when we was about to transition out of there, my husband was an evangelist. He had just got ordained the same year we got married, 1987. He was ordained as an evangelist in the same denomination. I was not ordained as a minister. As a matter of fact, I was just a regular member. I was only his wife. Let me put it like that. And what he did was he met with the leaders of the denomination, and he was able to acknowledge to them, thanking them for the years of service that he rendered to the denomination. And he wanted to bow out gracefully, and he really wanted to get their blessing. And they was able to give him a recommendation. As a matter of fact, as we established the next place we went, they was able to release a letter to him, letting him know that they are grateful too for the years and the time. And, they didn't really want him to leave, but yet the leader said to him, I don't want to keep you back from what God has in store for you, which is the next place, which is the ministry we are in now.
So the leadership was accommodating, and they worked with you. What was the membership like? Because this is where the rubber meets the road. What were people saying, your peers, those people that were among you, when they found out, or you told them for that fact, that you're leaving the denomination that you've been in all your life to go and start, I guess, an independent, non-denominational ministry? So let's
That
talk
the
about
trans
that, because
the
church people
transition,
are really interesting.
yeah, it was not easy, because when you have been, and I'm sure someone of them may be listening, when you have been in a denomination, we call it, you born in that denomination, you grew up in that denomination, your youth was in that denomination, you learned in the youth department, and you learned all of that, and now there's a time of transition. You had quite a few of them that did not say nothing. They was just watching to see, okay, maybe they may come back, maybe they're not serious. I'm going to watch their life and I'm going to see what's going to happen. Then you had a handful who said, I don't know if they know what they're doing. I don't know if what they're teaching is the gospel. Because, sometimes when the Lord begin to reveal himself to you, it's not that you are not teaching what they're teaching, but the Lord begin to give you insight. He begin to open up the scriptures. He begin to show you that you are more than where you are, and I have more in you than where you're sitting. So people begin to say, you had a handful that begin to say things like, I'm not sure what they're teaching is really solid, so I'm going to watch from afar. So you had a whole lot of people like that. But what I am so grateful for, Miranda, is my mother, because they're all in the same denomination. She was able to tell me, listen, God, whatever God is saying to you, stick with your husband. In other words, don't allow a marriage to be destroyed and a church to be destroyed. She said, stick with your husband. There is only one heaven. There's only one God. She was few with her words, but the few words she ministered to me, I held on to them. And she was so positive about the ministry. My dad was rather silent. And when someone is silent, you don't want to judge. I perceive he probably was praying. But my mom gave me a few words of encouragement. And even my brothers and sisters, maybe one of them was kind of, I'm not sure what they're doing, but all of them, they were watching me from far for a while before they begin to say, God really is with her and her husband. God is really with them. And I see some of these same people who were standing far. Some of them are listen, if I'm having a women's conference or whatever I'm having, they're the first to buy the ticket. They're the first to show up. They want to be a part of my ministry now. So we have to be careful when we transition. Despite the rocks being thrown, don't throw them back. Just show love. And if you're not sure about something, it's best to be silent and to pray.
Mm-hmm. So what was it like emotionally, though, during that transitional time? You have a brand new ministry, which means you're not taking over a ministry. You and your husband, meaning you have to build a ministry from the ground up. I want to talk about the emotional turmoil that may have had, as well as what the spiritual connotation was for what you were doing at that time, and how did you get through? Because we all know it's not easy, whether you take over a ministry or you're starting a ministry. So let's talk about building from the ground up. What was that like?
Building from the ground up. Many days I observed what the Lord was doing through my husband. Some things he was doing, I just sat in silence and I said, now, Lord, you're going to have to be with him and show him. I'm going to ride on his wings. Let me say that, because there's some things he said to me. I said, Lord, only you can do it. When we first transition out, and like you talked about the emotional, let me tell you something. I didn't realize what was going on until it caught up with my body. I went to Nassau for a function my dad had in Nassau not too long after the transition of the church. And I just took sick. My body just shut down on me. I didn't know what was going on with my body. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I was just having some symptoms. And I went to the doctor in Nassau, but they wasn't sure. They said, if you're from Freeport, it's best that you wait till you go back home. They run tests and everything. And then I did some counseling. And then I went to a heart specialist, and he was asking me, about our marriage. Did anything just happen in my life? And I told him the transition, because it had me, you remember what people have to say. And this is a place that you thought was forever, and this is the place to be. And all of a sudden, the Lord began to speak to your husband, and then you have to go with him, but you're not sure where you're going. I had almost like an Abrahamic moment. I wasn't sure where he was going, but I was going with him. See, he was a part of me, or I should say I'm a part of him. And I said, listen, I'm going to follow him wherever he goes. Not that if he go into a ditch, I'm going to fall too. But that's how much confidence I had in God, which was in him, because I've seen him being such a serious man of God and for the things of God. That's what convinced me that I'm going to be okay. But when we started the ministry, it was just of my husband, my son. And the good thing about it is the persons who came with us from the denomination, you look for them now, they're gone. They just wasn't the people, I guess, to stay with us.
Do you remember what the first service was like? Do you remember what that was like?
I tell you the truth. In our fund room, we had a pulpit. My son was 5, my husband and myself. And I just sat there and, and I had a couple of calls that same morning. I heard this, I heard that. We don't know what y'all do. All the fluff and all the talks, which everybody go through when they have to go through transition. You don't know who people are until you begin to step out on something new, whether it's a church, it's a business. You have those Symbolics and Tobias, they still around. You have the peeping toms, they come at night to see if your shop open yet or to see if your church still having church. So we had those people in our lives. The first service, it's same as if I wonder. I didn't say I wonder if this is God. I knew it was God, but it seemed so like we wasn't like, Lord, you gonna send anybody here? That I was like Mary. I was pondering so much in my heart. I couldn't open my mouth to tell my husband what I was pondering. I was talking to the Lord, and it's a good thing I had. I wouldn't say a perfect prayer life. At least I knew how to pray. I might not have been at the place where I am now, but I was asking the Lord. I say, Lord, I don't want you to move me from something what I knew what I had and taking me somewhere where I'm not sure what I'm going to get. And that's where I was at.
At what point did you feel confident? Like month 2, year 1, year 5? Like at what point did you feel like the ministry was in its rhythm and you were really making progress and moving?
I think after 1 year of being in the house, because after 1 year, my husband began to say that the Lord is showing us to move into a public place. And we rented a place for about maybe 3 or 4 years. And that's when I knew that this is now a moving body. This is now, I gained strength. I had the confidence. I began to really push him. Not that I wasn't pushing him then, but I began to see, the hand of God in his life and my life. Especially my husband do a whole lot of teaching, especially when we have Bible study nights, and people begin to be convinced that there is something about this ministry, there's something about this man and woman of God, that when I come into their presence, when I have Bible study, there's transformation in me when I leave. It's not like I just been to church, but it's like I've been to a station, a place where I could really receive something. And that's about a year after. That's when I got the confidence that this is God. Not that I didn't know it was him then. This is when I saw him.
Right. After a year. And so the ministry began to grow. And people, were you ever concerned? Because as in any ministry, people leave once
Yeah.
they believe or they feel like a good thing is going on in a new place. They will leave where they are and come into where you are. At any point, did you feel uncomfortable with people leaving their ministries to come into your ministry?
Um, I saw that. And when I saw that, it's not that I wasn't comfortable, but as people came, we assured them that everyone is not here to stay. And my husband and I will say that from the first time they come. So we could get that confidence that, hey, if you decide to leave after 3 months just because the church only have one bathroom or because we start 10 o'clock, thank you for coming. But the Lord already assured us everyone that come through these doors is not going to stay. Some people come for a season and some come to stay. And then you will know those who come to stay because they're going to let you know the Lord sent us here. And we still don't know if the Lord sent you because he will minister to us too. So we had people who came and go. Churches is like a revolving door. And sometimes you don't do nothing to people and they just leave.
Mhm, mhm. If you're just joining us, I'm talking with Pastor Eleanor Williams, who is the author of the book, The Diary of a Pastor's Wife. Let me just get in. There's so many comments already. So let me jump in with what I see so far. Let's do this. Oh, hey, Nisa, good to see you. Elder Inslee, welcome. I'm going to reach out to you soon. Somebody says, Joba says, words of wisdom. She says, gather all the stones that are thrown at you and build your ministry. Lavette McFall says, nothing like when you know that God has his hand on the man of God's life. You can't mind what you see. You have to go with what you know God said. And Pressy Wallace says, true words past the tests and trials show us the truth about who is genuinely for us. So I want to talk a little bit more now because you're in ministry, you're watching the ministry grow. What was the most challenging thing for you in being a pastor's wife? Or what were the expectations that people had of you or that you thought were just unfair?
What I think over the years, and especially in the latter years, sometimes when I speak to the congregation, people misinterpret my thoughts, or I should say what I speak.
Mm-hmm.
I will begin to share concerning something the Lord put in my spirit to share about. And you'll have one or two people who say the pastor wife is talking about people in the pulpit. And what it does is some people are Christians, but they're very carnal. So what it does, they begin to tell another person about what they sense, about what I say.
Mm-hmm.
And then it brings off to another few because of what they thought that you said. And it could be
So you felt
challenging
like you've
when
been misunderstood.
yes, yes, because people are at different levels. Because
Mm.
my spiritual walk, not that I think I'm so high, a lot of God's people are very carnal. And you speak in spiritual things and they take it in the flesh.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been a challenge, not just in my local assembly, but sometimes I ministers out
Mm-hmm.
and you get feedback. And,
So
and,
how do
and,
you
and that
counter that? How do you deal with that? When you have come upon a situation like that, how have you been handling that?
a situation like that, Miranda, I don't even try to solve in the flesh because when you're dealing with people with different personalities, different levels of thoughts, people are saved, but they are very fleshy. You have to just continue to teach people by way of example. And then you have to teach them how to go into training sessions. Some people are very close-minded. They only go to church Sunday morning and that's it. They don't go to no conference. They don't do nothing non-conventional. So they have this narrow track mind and they size you up according to where they are. But you have to bring them up higher. And I find myself doing that a lot in the congregation, bringing people up to higher levels of their thinking, higher levels of their standard of who they are, and knowing who they are, first of all, because a lot of people don't know who they are, especially when you're dealing with a lot of women. And most churches, majority of the members are women.
Mm-hmm. What over the years has made you cry or hurt the most about being a pastor's wife in ministry?
Even if I must say cry, I end up, if it's any tears, I end up with tears because I desire to see the maturity in the members.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you could have somebody around the church 15, 20 years, and it's like, they have another child, they still not where they should be. And sometimes if you're not watchful as that pastor's wife, you end up with pity rather than compassion. Let me say that.
Explain that a little further when you say you end up with pity rather than compassion.
Yes, if an individual as a member of the church and they just keep, going through a lot of hurt in their life, a lot of pain, always on the I need angle and end, rather than having compassion on them and then give to them and to do what they need to do. Sometimes if I'm not careful, I'll end up having, like this pity, like I feel so sorry for them.
Mm-hmm.
I feel so sorry for them. And then I begin to hurt because of them. But then I learned that it is really something called having compassion for them, where I can really feel the need and yet be praying, but not, because when you get with pity, sometimes it could end up affecting your emotions, your body. You just crying for them because you feel sorry for them.
Mm-hmm.
But members can cause you to cry too.
Right. Okay.
They could cause you to cry, to be honest with you.
What
Sometimes
what overwhelms you about ministry? What overwhelms you?
what really overwhelms me with ministry is when I begin to see, like right now, a lot of I should say a good, well, 3 or 4 of the young men in the ministry. Right now, they are college students, and I watch them, come into the ministry, the single parent thing, and the parent don't hardly have nothing much, and they are now in college and now doing so well for themselves. It gives me a sense of being overwhelmed and a sense of joy. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like they are my own children. When you see members of the church and they've been around a long time, and they came in the church, I'm scrapping and 2, 3 children for different men, and then you begin to see them begin to play their role and begin to be active in the church and begin to take on a husband. And these were the children now establishing themselves in society and in the ministry. It makes you feel so overwhelmed. I won't even use the word proud. You just feel overjoyed, especially when they come home in the summer and you hear the maturity, and my husband will call them up to testify. And sometimes I just hold back the tears, and I'll get home, and I go home, I tell my husband, I say, suppose we had really maybe this fellowship them like some churches do, or suppose we really did not check for her when she got pregnant again.
Mm-hmm.
It gives
Mm-hmm.
you an overwhelming joy.
The coronavirus pandemic came in and swept the global space and changed the way many people do church. How has it impacted your ministry and what are you doing differently now?
Dealing with, last year at the same time, to be honest, as I remembered, today is the 21st. It was around the 21st. That Sunday was our last Sunday at church. And we stayed home for almost 7 months. Zoom was something that nobody knew about. I think we had more people on Zoom than who came to church. because people was beginning to become hungry and thirsty for the word of the Lord, because they was not sure what was going on and what was going to happen. So people had this passion now that I want to hear from the Lord. So people were more attentive in coming, and it got to a place where they began to ask us, when are we going to go back to the building? You had people asking that who haven't been to church for a long time before the lockdown, but they begin to feel, I call it fellowship sick or church sick. They wanted to come out. But the thing that was so powerful during the lockdown, after 4 months of being in the lockdown, the Lord had me to do what was called a prayer empowerment summit for about 7 weeks. So we had it every Monday night for 7 weeks for like 2 hours. And people were looking forward to come into the session with that. I think the pandemic for our ministry was very powerful. I will say that if I have to use 2 or 3 words.
Mm-hmm. So you figure the pandemic has had a positive impact on your
Yes.
ministry. When it comes to actually ministering to those persons who may have been unemployed, how challenging was that to be able to minister to the whole man?
Well, the persons who were unemployed in our ministry or who became unemployed, the excellent thing about our ministry is we really have an open door policy, meaning that once an individual in the ministry knows that there is a need, we have a few persons that they approach, male and female, that they approach, and they can share their needs with. We had quite a bit of giveaways. The church had quite a bit of giveaways. We cooked hot food for a number of days during the pandemic. So we was able to disperse to our members groceries, clothing, shoes. I think that was one of the best times that we begun to do that area of the ministry. And those who was not working, listen, nobody in that church can say, I don't know how to ask if I have a need.
Mhm, mhm. So, how has it changed the way that you do ministry now? How has the pandemic changed the way you do it?
The way the pandemic has changed is I miss the fellowship of the saints, because we only meet Sunday mornings now. And it's like, if you don't see them Sunday morning, I mean, being a pastor's wife is almost like these people are your children. And when you go to church Sunday morning, it's like, okay, if you don't see them that morning, I personally would pick up the phone. If I know somebody always there, I said, I didn't see you. They're like, oh, I had to work. I miss the fellowship of the brethren, because we used to meet Wednesday night in the body with fellowship. And right now we meet on Zoom, and our women's ministry, we meet on Zoom. So only Sunday mornings we have that fellowship, but there is a great bond, and you can still feel the love of the saints, and you can still see them if you want to, because we are not hard to reach. We are not hard we don't act busy or be busy if our members call us. Let me put it like that. We find time. We find time.
Excellent. I want to transition now and begin to segue into talking about you as an author and the author of this book, The Diary of a Pastor's Wife. And this is year 25 of your ministry, but when did you first come up with this idea that I want to write a book about the life of a pastor's wife?
This idea came up about, I'll say about 12 years ago. What led me to begin to write this book? I think I wrote this book for many other leading ladies and pastors' wives. I share the same stage with many of them. They are in my circle, not just in Freeport, they're in my circle in Nassau, some of them in the United States. And they all share the same thoughts that was in my spirit. And I just began to write, not thinking that one day this journal would turn into a book. And I just began to write on areas that we always discuss when we meet. We would discuss stuff, we will meet, We will talk about different areas of the pastorate and in our lives. And I just would journalize, I would just write. And I remembered maybe about a year before my mother passed away, I told her, I said, you know something, I'm journalizing a book on pastors' wives. She said, oh, that's good. She was always, quiet. She didn't start to say, yes, go and write, go and write. No, she said, I think that will be good. And I began to write more. Like immediately after she passed away, I began to write more into the journalize more. And then I began to give the journalizing structure. I began to give it chapters. And then after the chapters, there's areas in the book that is actually question and answer. There's meditation time. There is devotionals. So there are some different topics that's in the back of the book that came in after the chapters. Because I have chapter 1 through 10, and then I have some other areas that is needed. As a leader in a leader of women, a pastor's wife, armor bearer, co-pastor. This book is for anyone. I always use the term hang around leadership. It's not just pastors and pastors' wives. Mm-hmm. So a lot that's not in the book is still in my spirit.
You mentioned that you noticed a common thread every time you would talk to your peers around the world. What if I walked into a room with pastor's wife? What would be the common theme of the conversation?
The theme of the conversation will be you need patience. They always talk about you need patience. We always discuss you better know how to pray. You better know how to pray. And the conversation is always around the pastor, his wife, and the children. Mm-hmm. As to persons need to know that we have a life. Our lives doesn't just depend on these people who come every Sunday, the people who come every Wednesday, the people who call us. Our life doesn't just consist of just a dead man, but we have a life. And what we talk about too is, and it is so true, and any pastor wife on the line, I'm sure they could relate to this. Everybody call us for everything. And sometimes I say, when is my time? Who's there? I know the Lord is there because I call on him. Mm-hmm. But there are times when I may have special occasions in my life. I move around and make sure everybody in the congregation, when it's everybody's birthday, did we sing for them? Did we do this? Did we get this? Did we do that? And then sometimes it don't have to be birthday. There's a season in your life and everybody forget. Mm-hmm. Sometimes including your husband. And then you go to yourself at home and you're like, I wonder if it's worth it. And then the Lord will minister to you. I am pleased. I am watching you. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to raise you up. And that's what kept me going, to know that it is God that has called me and with such a grace in the setting that I'm in this season.
Was there ever a time that you felt as if you lost your identity as Eleanor, not Pastor Eleanor, but just Eleanor? Was there ever a time that you felt like you lost yourself in the ministry or doing ministry?
I won't say lost myself, but sometimes I have to catch myself. When I use the term catch myself, I have to speak to myself and say, now, hold on, you need to step back. You need to not take on more than you think you can handle, because sometimes we just go, and we tell everybody yes, yes, yes. And then the green light, green light, green light. And we feel like we have to be to every service. We have to be a part of everything. We just feel like we have to be there. But I'm learning now as I get older in ministry and older in age, you just cannot afford to be to everything to know what's going on. So I just inquire rather than trying to physically go to everything. Because you could lose yourself if you just go into everything and then you into everything, but you're still not maximizing on your gifting and your calling.
Mm-hmm. How did you balance being the pastor's wife and knowing that you too had a call to preach or teach in ministry, or was it not a challenge for you? How did you balance it?
Well, the good thing, Miranda, I perceive helped us is that my husband coming from a PK background and me coming from a PK background, that helped me a whole lot. Because sometimes, people will say to me, you going to church again, you're going to prayer meeting again, and I'm just foot to foot with him because it is something that already in my DNA. Because a lot of one or two pastors' wives I minister to, and they're like, how do you do it? Because I tired going to church. I tired of this. I'm tired of that. And I said to them, the Lord has to strengthen you. He has to grace you. And I perceive I might have had a little more head start than many others because I was already used to going to church all the time. Used to having prayer meeting in our house in the morning time. My husband, they had prayer meeting every morning in their house. I had prayer meeting every morning in our house because my dad was a pastor. His dad was a pastor. We know when Tuesday nights come, it doesn't matter what's going on. You got to go to youth meeting. Whether you take your homework book in church and you do homework in church, you have to go.
Mhm.
So I think the conflict wasn't as challenging in ministry with both of us like that because we use sometimes going to a church event as a date out. The average person would say that ain't no date. I call it that because both of us are going somewhere that we perceive is a little break, even though it's a church event.
Interesting concept. So, did you raise your sons the same way that you were raised? That they had to be in church at all the meetings, the prayer meetings, Bible studies? Did were they raised the same way?
When our sons was very small, I should say, from they were in the womb, I would just flow in ministry up until when I was probably 8 months. I was still doing ministry and praying for people and everything. So when they were babies, of course, we took them to church with us. They continued to come to church with us. And I always say it only God's grace and his mercy that sustained them and kept them in coming out to service. Now, what I noticed with them, they will go to church on Sunday and they will get involved with the youths. But if my husband and I going out to minister, they'll be like, Dad and Mom, I'm not going. They're like, y'all don't know what time to come home. I know that's what they're saying. They won't go with us there. So I would tell my husband, listen, we don't need to force them to go with us everywhere like our parents did because it causes the children to rebel. So when
Mhm.
Sunday morning came, they would flow, get ready, and come to church. The only thing that I had challenge with, and I had to get used to it, they go to church and they cut jeans or they regular jeans. That was challenging for me, but I got used to it. Because they're like, Mommy, what you talking about? Sometimes they ready for church, and I thinking they ain't ready yet. I say, you see what time it is? We ready for church. Mommy, what you talking about? I have on clothes. I go into church. And
Mhm.
Miranda, I have to let that sink in because so many people tell me, listen, I wish my sons would just go to church. You fussing over cut jeans. So the only challenge I had was them, their dress code. And listen, up to this day, they still dress like that. And that's just this season. Our oldest son, if he have to minister now and again, I'll see him grab a coat now. But
Mhm.
they just be real casual. But I thank God that their lives, where they continue to come out every Sunday morning and sat under the preaching and the teaching of their father, and they begin to flow with the youths and begin to take the role in youth ministry. I think that sustained them. But that getting up every morning to physically pray, like we did growing up, I told my husband, that ain't working for them. So let's don't start something that's going to cause them to rebel. So
Mhm.
what we do up until now, they're both in college. Just how we hook on Skype or Periscope or Zoom, we meet with them once every 2 weeks. Yes, you don't have no class Tuesday night. That's our night to meet. Or if you have class, we use another night. But we still have a family chat if only once every 2 weeks. What's going on in college? Talk to us, because they're still single. They don't have children. So talk to your parents. Let's have a talk family night. And I think that really, I want to speak to pastors' wives out there. Do not cause your children to rebel. You're trying to bring them up just like you. Yes, we brought them up on the word, but if we try to bring them up like we did, they're going to rebel and they're going to leave home. Because the way how we was born up, you had to get up physically 5:30 every morning. And these children now, they are weaker, but they wiser.
Mhm.
So they just go into bed around 2 o'clock. I'm telling you, I can speak
I'm,
the truth. Oh,
I'm
you watching negative movies now. I'm not going to speak that on children because God is the judge. But these children don't go to bed no 10, 11 o'clock in the night.
I'm speaking with Pastor Eleanor Williams. She's the author of The Diary of a Pastor's Wife. And let me go back to the comments a little bit here. I went up too far. So, oh yeah, okay. I just called her name, and I'm sorry, this is going okay. There is so much happening here. Okay. Someone says, never respond. You have to remember you are only the vessel. Your accountability is to God. Pinky Isaacs Mortimer says, you're a true woman of God who has always been such a blessing to her over the many years. And you're always welcoming. Cheryl Roll says, so very true, woman of God. We really need the wisdom of Almighty God Jehovah to discern how to relate to people, no matter who they are. Ellison Williams says, I really like the point about pity versus compassion. Pity is
That's my
generally based
son,
on what one
Ellison.
sees.
That's my son, Miranda. Hi, Ellison.
Hey, son.
He
That,
lives in
that's
Tallahassee.
That's awesome that he's watching. So he says pity is generally based on what one sees, and it has undertones of being on a high horse. Most people don't want to be pitied, whereas compassion is motivated by love and often leads to action. Excellent point, Ellison. Um, what else? Joba says, I love family night. I also have a family meeting. So let's move on a little bit, talking more about the book because I haven't had a chance to read the book. You have to make sure I get a copy, but I went through the chapters and there were a couple of chapters that just stood out to me. So what I'm going to do in this particular segment is to call the name of the chapter, and then I want you to give me your perspective or what your intent was in writing these particular chapters. And I want to take a look at, I believe it's chapter 2, and it says, the role of a pastor's wife. I've worked with a lot of ministries over the years, and in every ministry I've been in, the pastor's wife's role has been different. She's played different roles in ministry. Some pastors' wives are there for him. uh, Traditionally, most pastors' wives were the leaders of the women's group, or now we call it women's ministry or something, and there was an expectation that she would be the quote unquote mother of the church. I know that's the traditional church and the way it is. Some pastors, like yourself, are co pastoring, some wives rather, are co pastoring with their husbands. And so there are so many different roles that wives are playing in ministry. So tell me, when you wrote that chapter, what is the perspective? What is that all about? The role of a pastor's wife.
Well, the role of the pastor's wife, first of all, her role is to be his wife. Let me establish that first. His role is to be his wife, first of all, because even though he's a pastor, remember, first of all, now he is a male, he's a man. So, first of all, she is his wife. When it comes to the different roles of the pastor's wife, every church operates different. Let me say that. Every church operates different. Some pastors will tell the church, this is my wife. She's not going to be no woman's leader. She's not your mother. Some things what some people tell me their husband tell the church. I said, hello, that's the church. I can't come against what your husband tell the church. I can only speak for where I am. Some pastors will tell the congregation, my wife is not going to be the woman's leader. She's just going to be my wife. She's just going to be at my side. She's not going to be the children's leader. She's just going to be my personal assistant only, and not to put no pressure on her. Some of them just lay the roles, lay the red carpet out, and they tell the church what their thoughts are.
Chapter 5. Are you a pastor's wife or his knife? What's that about?
Wow. When I wrote that chapter, what I was thinking about, Miranda, when I wrote this chapter is there is so much competition in the pulpit. I'm not calling no church name and I'm not calling nobody. The scriptures say, let a man examine himself. When I speak about are you his wife or are you his knife, there are times when you have a pastor's wife that the Lord is using mightily. But because you are his wife, sometimes you feel as if that, oh, I can be the pastor because I may be more anointed than him. The Lord has used me more than him. I have more speaking engagement than him. I have much more speaking engagement than my husband, but that doesn't take me to use that as a knife against him to say, okay, I know more people. I'm more popular. You know, that's a dominating spirit. And I use that to say, are you his knife? What I'm doing is I'm contributing to my husband. I'm bringing to the table more because if I have an engagement, he have an engagement too because he usually go with me. He's a part of me. And even if he don't go with me, I am taking him with me because we are one. So that's why I use the term, are you his wife, are you his knife? Do you preach against him? Do you tell the congregants that, hey, what pastor preach? Listen, I am coming against it because that's not how it go. And this is how I stand. This is what I want to do. So it's more or less like a knife. It's more or less like, are you his wife or are you his supporter? Are you his cheerleader or are you that one who is really putting a knife in his back, behind his back? You talking about him to the congregation. That is something a wife should never do. That's the worst thing to do. Talk about your pastor, who's your husband, to the members. That's a different topic. Maybe that should have been one chapter in my book. It
Maybe
happens.
to be
It's
considered
real.
for another time. Okay, so the pastor's wife and her lifestyle. What is that about?
The pastor's wife and her lifestyle. Um, Even when I wrote this book, Miranda, I said I want a lot of pastors' wives to get a hold of this who just starting in ministry. Because people come into the pastorate with this persona that you have to be driving the year car, you have to go to the hairdresser every Saturday, you have to go to the nail tech every Saturday, and you have to shop for something new every Saturday or Friday for that Sunday. I want to tell you that's not the true persona of a pastor's wife. I'm not downing dress code because I have a book where I wrote how to be elegant and how elegance and elegant is the order of the day. So I'm not removing that, but there is a talk out there that you have to look a certain way. How are you supposed to look? Do you have to drive a certain type of car? They have to have a parking spot for you with your name. Nothing is wrong with these things, but that should not be. This is the lifestyle. This is biblical. No, let that inward woman, let that virtuous woman, because in that chapter it starts off by saying, "Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies." So the rubies and the inward, your lifestyle should be that of Christ. First of all, your prayer life. That should be your first lifestyle. But I truly want to say, any pastor wife that is listening, if you decide you want to come to church in a pants with a nice top, nothing is wrong with that. People will make you believe that you have to wear a hat, you have to sit in the front, make sure you have a hanky, make sure you have on a full face of makeup, and they want to tell you how to act. No, the lifestyle is a way of life. First of all, living for Christ. Number two, your lifestyle needs to be a life of prayer.
Mhm,
That's a false image of them, Miranda. I just want to clear that up.
mhm. So there are pastors' wives out there who feel the pressure of trying to meet up to or look like another pastor's wife. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes. And we all on different level. Some pastors'
Mhm.
wives do not work. They depend on their husbands for income. So how could that pastor wife who depend on her husband for income? She can't get that fascinator for $310, nor that weave for 600. But she is pressured maybe to her husband thinking she have to look a certain way. You don't have to look a certain way.
Mhm.
Some
You're
pastors'
the
wives. I mean, I never wear lashes in my life, and ladies wear them. Oh, a pastor wife, oh, you should wear. You need to wear this. You need to do this. You need to wear heels, and every time you go to the house, you should wear makeup. No, if you want to come out your house with no makeup on, listen, the makeup is in your heart, meaning that you come out of the house with a good heart. Sometimes we want to be ourselves. We don't have to come out the house looking like how people think we need to come out. Once you are properly adorned, you choose one Sunday, like we call it, to dress down. Nothing is wrong with that. You don't have to impress nobody.
Mhm,
Please God, and then your husband.
mhm. You're the chaplain for the Grand Bahama Association of Ministers, Wives, and Widows. What are the types of things that you are discussing in an association like that, particularly when it comes to uh, younger women in ministry, meaning pastors' wives? And is there an upward or downward trend in the number of churches or people that you see becoming pastors' wives nowadays?
First of all, pastors' wives, if we don't really teach them, and that is why the Lord blessed me to write this book, so that we can steer the younger ones coming up in the right direction. That is not a glamorous seat. It's not just a moment, but it is a lifestyle, and it's something that's eternal, that you flow in, that you groom people, that you bring them into kingdom, and you take them to another level of the pastorate. And then sometimes you find some of them don't even know their role. They just come to church and they just say, I'm the pastor's wife. And there are not many midwives that are left, Miranda. There are not many mentors. So the Lord have me as a midwife and as someone that is able to mentor leading women in this particular area who are distressed and who are stressed and who are ready to give up and ready to give in.
Mhm. And
So
what
I
are some
say,
of the stressors? What are some of the stressors for them? Because you said they're distressed and all and in
some
stress
of
or
them
whatever.
some of them are distressed because sometimes you have them, the leadership put pressure on them. Sometimes the membership put pressure on them. Not that not they could try to do it to me too, but it depends on where you are in your spiritual walk. That you don't allow you to carry nothing in your flesh, or carry people just naturally. Because when you already pray for these people, you can't carry these people. Only God could carry them. You could just give them to the Lord in prayer.
Mhm. What are some of
You
the
know,
pressures that the leadership or the membership or fellowship may be putting on a pastor's wife? What is some of this pressure?
sometimes they expect from pastors' wives more than they are putting out. Sometimes you may have a wife that is, like I said in the book, there is three different types of pastors' wives. You have pastors' wives who is not frontline like me, but they may have a church where they are trying to push on that particular woman what I am doing in my local assembly. She may
Mhm.
not be cut for what I'm doing because I'm actually the women's leader, and I also have um, speaking engagement for Women's Summit, Women's Conference, and I deal with the leadership, I deal with the women in our ministry. But you have some pastors' wives who are not in none of those areas. They just probably is that supportive wife only.
Mhm.
So sometimes they feel pressured that I see every other pastor's wife so active. You are active, but you are active in your own way. You have to know that if the Lord has you not being active like another pastor's wife, that doesn't mean that you're not fulfilling your role. It's just that the Lord has ordained us and has put us in the body as it pleased Him in different ways and different roles. Maybe because of how I was brought up and the experience that I have growing up in the church, being active in different roles, it enabled me and it helped me a whole lot where I am. Also,
Mhm.
some pastors' wives, Miranda, they don't desire to upgrade themselves. You have to upgrade yourself non conventionally. You have to go out and make yourself friendly, meaning that you go to conferences, you go to seminars, you upgrade yourself in many which way, because there are times when you may have to stand by your husband and you want to be that supportive wife where you're able to help him. And that's not just spiritually. Sometimes some of us may need to go back to school. Everything now is technology. When my husband is not around, I have to flow with the Zoom on the saints. Now, if I didn't know how to do Zoom, I can't help him in that area. But I learned the technology, how to operate with the Zoom if we have to have a service or a meeting or a prayer.
Okay. So I was asking you about the Grand Bahama Association of Ministers, Wives, and Widows. What exactly are some of the things that you're doing in that particular organization to help the pastors' wives? And then let's talk a little bit about the widows, because there are a lot of women out there whose husbands perhaps may have died,
Yes.
and now they are no longer the quote unquote first lady of the ministry, but where does that put them? So let's talk a little bit about them too.
Now, the Grand Bahama Pastors' Wives and Widows Association is only about 2 years old, but
Okay.
that has been around in the churches for, I'm sure, many, many, many years. I've heard about them from before I got married, and I've been married 33 years. They've been around a very long time, and they are very vibrant in Nassau. But they just came to Grand Bahama about 2 years ago. As a matter of fact, when we were um, seeking a leader, they approached me, but I wasn't feeling the leading for that. I felt as if my plate was already full. So they offered the chaplaincy, and in my spirit, I sensed and I yielded myself and I accepted that. What the association does is they would usually meet at a certain time of the month. Now, we haven't met because of the pandemic. I'm sure that what kept us back. But before the pandemic, we have been meeting once a month, and we will normally meet and we will share if there's anything that may be any of us, any situation, any matter that we may be going through that we want to put to the table, that we want to share. And what I love about the meetings that we've had here in Freeport is, the premises is always prayer. I must say that. There's always been prayer. There's a small group of wives that meet, and I must say that there's been much transparency, and we have shared, we've cried, we have prayed. But my concern also, Miranda, has been towards widows. I always have somewhere in my heart for the widows, and I've been given to them privately. For some reason, the Lord has been blessing me to give to a few widows right here in Freeport privately, to pay attention to them privately.
What do after writing this book, let's talk about there's a chapter about balancing ministry and your home and whatever. So let's talk a little bit about how you have balanced being co-pastor, being a wife, being a mother, and I'm not certain if you're employed outside of the home or whatever, but how have you managed first to balance those things in your life, and what do you recommend for other, especially younger women who may still be working and
Mhm.
full time and being playing the role as a pastor's wife?
As that pastor's wife, to the man, when it comes to family and ministry, that can be very, very, it depends on your church, to be honest with you, because you have some churches where just the pastor will attend service more than his wife, and that's not an issue. And then you have some congregation where the wife is always in service with her husband. Reason being, you have, I'm not going to say 80%, but there's a whole lot of pastors who are full time and the wives work.
Mhm.
Most of my life, I have worked 9 to 5. I really worked, I should say, I've worked 90% of my life in my marriage and in ministry. Just 2 years ago, I was released off my job. But all my life, I've worked. I talking about the time with the 25 years in ministry. And listen, many times it was not easy. And I want to encourage and speak to those pastors' wives who have small children. When our children were small, I had the second child while we was already in ministry. And I said to the church, everybody in here is my baby godchild. They boys out laughing because I had to bring the baby every time I come to church, and I needed help. So I feel for those young wives, you're pregnant, two small children, and then the church expect you to be out every time the door open. You don't have to be in the door to know that you're with the people. So balancing ministry and work, being a wife, you need help. Nothing wrong with seeking help. Somebody to come in to clean sometime for you and to help you with those small children so that your life can be more effective. So you can be a wife, you can be a mother, and you are able to be effective as that, particularly as that pastor's wife. But everybody starts with this rocky ground of working and church and work. And if your husband is the husband with the wisdom of God, he will cover for you and he will flow during those times when you cannot come out. But don't allow membership to put guilt on you because you're not able to come to every service. Sometimes the children are sick. Sometimes you sick. Many times I went to church and not feeling well, to be honest. I just went out because you say, now, I don't want them to ask where I is again. And many times you put your life on the line just to be there for the people. Sometimes when people come to church, they're like, I didn't see Pastor Wife. It's like they don't have to come, but you need to be there. And what I'm happy about, Miranda, is my husband never forced me to go to church. If I said to him that I'm not going out tonight because I'm not feeling well or I want to spend some quiet time with the Lord, he will always say, well, may the Lord bless you till I come back home. And once he come back home, I always like to know, I might as well have gone, Miranda, to church. I want to know what happened from start to finish and, mending and remember everything. And I still miss them because it's in my DNA. They're already around my life. Even my sons, I say, sometimes you all make me mad, but I still can't do it without y'all. I still want to see y'all. The membership, you're looking for them. You want to know what's going on. That balance, you can never get it down pat to say, oh, I got this now. Seasons in your life, you have to ask the Lord to bless you with your scheduling. Father, now what will it please you? What I'm happy about, Miranda, is if I see my husband getting a bit too caught up and I see where we are not able to spend our time, I would always say, I'm the one with the eyes to pull and say, listen, we need to change the tide. We need some time for us. We need to use this night just for us. That is very important. I have that also. That's a chapter also in the book that talks about my husband as my beloved mate. That's very important. That's the butter to the bread. You cannot just get caught up in church affairs and meetings and everything that's going on. And then every week, every month, and you are just surrounded with that. And this woman is lost. You don't even know who she is, but you ministering to all the saints and you ain't minister to her yet. That's important, that my husband ministered to me.
What would you say to laypersons like myself who are not pastors' wives or in any position in ministry? What is something that you want to say to lay people that you perhaps would not say to your congregation, but you have this open forum now? What would you say to them to get through to us that we need to understand about ministry and the role that the pastor's wife plays in that ministry? What would you say?
The role that the pastor's wife played.
Yeah, what you have this opportunity now to just speak to lay people. What are some of the things that perhaps we may have missed or we are missing about the pastor's wife and the role she should be playing in the ministry?
Well, first of all, it's important that the leaders, which is a part of the leadership and the part of the congregation, they see the importance of this person, this woman, this gift. Let me use that because that's the word I wrote in all of the pastors' wives' book when I gave them their autograph on the night of the book launch. I said, and I wrote in their book, You are a gift to the body of Christ. When a gift comes to you, you have to appreciate the gift. You have to know the value of the gift. Some people don't know the value of a gift because they don't open the gift. They just have it wrapped and they just look at it. And that's how some pastors' wives are to some congregants. They just look at a gift, but they don't take time out to get to know that gift, who that woman is. Once or twice, one or two of the younger ladies travel with me on ministry when I go out. And, coming back home in the car and I'm talking, they're like, we never saw the side of you. We just see you as the gift in church and we're so happy we spend some time to get to know you. You're not what they say you are, or, that's what I mean when I say it's important that people see that we are a gift to the body of Christ. And we love to be a woman or a lady, and we love our space. And we are, sometimes people use the term, we are human just like anybody else. Sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we are late. Some people say, oh, just one always late for church. Sometimes the pastor wife, we are late sometimes. Sometimes we have delays, we have challenges. Sometimes we have tests too that we go through. We may not talk about it to everyone, but we want persons to see that if you cut us, we bleed too. We cry too. We have labor pains too. We feel when you hurt our husbands. So things like this is what we will want persons to know about us.
And what do pastors' wives need to know about the congregants and the people that they have been tasked with the responsibility to oversee with their husbands?
Definitely, we as wives, we need to respect, we need to honor, we need to trust the membership. Sometimes you find some pastors' wives, and what is important, we don't want to, how should I put it, think of ourselves more highly than we ought to think. We need to be able to condescend. There are times when people will come to our church visiting and they don't know I'm the pastor's wife because I'm the usher. They don't know until at the end of the service, my husband said, I'm going to call on my wife to close out. They say, but that woman was just the usher. Miranda, I love to condescend with the saints. I'm not telling you I sit around, hang out with them every day. They all around our house. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being able to relate to them.
Mm-hmm.
Not have my nose up, because one day I'm going to need them as much as they need me. So every member, whether they are single, married, divorced, I want to hear what they are saying. I want to sit by them and feel their pain sometime. I want that motherly spirit to come out of me sometime when I'm dealing with them, because they are precious. They are sheep. I don't want to treat them like goats. I want to speak to them with love. Sometimes I would talk to a person and they're like, I don't like how my pastor wife has talked to me. I said, listen, just show love. I'm not here bashing pastors' wives, but I want us to be able to relate more to the sheep, because the sheep, sometimes they're bleeding and we don't even know because we're so high. We say, I don't sit that low. I don't hang with them. They're my husband, children. Yeah, but you are your husband, wife.
Mm-hmm.
They are both of your children. So they're not afraid to come to me, Miranda. That's like your own natural children. If you keep bashing them and cursing them and rowing them, when they're hurting, they even ain't come to you. They go into another woman to tell them their pains too. And nothing like when your children have to go to somebody else and they have to come and tell you, you don't know your girl pregnant. You don't know she's pregnant. She's 6 months. She told me. She said she can't even talk to you. I want to be approachable. But yet, there's a line drawn in the sand that, listen, there's respect, there's honor, and there's a level on both of our ends.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that
So
answered the question.
how do you maintain that boundary? Because I think that's a problem that a lot of people struggle with, especially when you are in leadership. There is a tightrope where you want to be approachable, attainable, friendly, and intermingle and all that stuff. But some people don't understand boundaries. How are you able not just generally, but how is Pastor Eleanor able to establish and maintain her boundaries when it comes to ministry?
Particularly with my local assembly or just generally?
However you want to approach it.
Okay. Generally, I should say, when it comes to my local church and the members, I ensure that I display fair play. When I say fair play, if they was to come on this set now, and if they choose to speak the truth, Lady Eleanor don't have no clicks. Clicks is a serious thing, and people know when there's click. So what I have done, I set a standard for myself. I have boundaries, meaning that there is no one or two people who can say, Eleanor only would look at me, only will deal with me, only will deal with my situation, and she doesn't check for the other children. It's almost like a woman with 6 children. People say, oh, she loved her son more than her daughters. No. I seek to balance my life in a way that all of them can be on the same page when I speak. And my yea is yea and my nay is nay. Even if they speak for me and I'm not there, if they come on the set and you was to silence the mic and they will ask them, who is your pastor's wife? They would say, she would set a standard. And if she speaks something, she's going to do that first and she's going to live that. I always talk about time, organizing what you speak. And by God's grace, I walk in that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't just speak. I live what I speak. My children can come on the set and they would say, one thing with mommy, she's going to do this, she's going to do that. She's going to tell you, but she's going to bring order. Mm-hmm. Anybody come in my space, Miranda, and they start running on and talking about people, they could tell you, Lady Eleanor, don't go to her with it. She's not going to entertain it. Mm-hmm. They know my brand. And I'm not bragging, but my brand is prayer. My platform is honesty and fair play. You come to me with something, I want both of you to come in the front of me. Let's solve this problem. It's not the problem that counts, but we're here to deal with the solution. Because many wives have challenges with friends. Oh, they got a click. Oh, that's my friend. Don't preach on her. Don't give her no gift. Don't know. Been there, done that. I was in that, but now I've overcame that.
So I want to talk about that click since you mentioned it, because what does that look like in terms of being in a clique as a pastor's wife? What does that look like?
Now, the reason why I said that is because I've seen that. Mm-hmm. And I see what it can cost. But I personally have never been in it that caused chaos. But what the clique can cause is you choosing a particular family or families just to cater to you and you cater to them. And all of the other families are left out. That can create a problem within
You're talking
the church.
About in the ministry in general. Okay.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah, ministry in general. That could create a problem. That's why you have to be a balanced person, a person that is reachable and teachable. But mm-hmm. You cannot be one-sided and choosing one over the other and that kind of personality. You have to be fair in your spirit because it could create an atmosphere and it could create an environment that is open for chaos, gossip, and it can lead to other things in the body of Christ. Mm-hmm. You have to be fair.
In our final moments, we're almost coming to the end and of this time that has been well spent. What's next for Pastor Eleanor?
What's next for me? Mm-hmm. I desire to mentor those young wives coming in. I have 2 of them that is under my belt now that is actually pulling on me for mentorship. They really want to do it God's way. Let me say that. They want to do it God's way. They don't want to do it in the traditional way, because the word of God talks about tradition has made the word not effective. And they desire to do it God's way because they see the traditional way is not working as effective as God's way. So I have two of them.
So before what is the traditional way? Because for lay people like us, what are you talking about? The traditional way of being a pastor's wife? What is that?
When I say the traditional way, they're just going on what they see. Let me break that down. They're going on what they see rather than saying, you know something, I want to do some classes with you, especially after they saw the book. I want to do some classes with you that's going to help me and catapult me into the next level of pastoral, because they saying they know it's more to them than just, I go every Sunday with my pastor, with my husband, because they have small children. And this is the perfect time. These two ladies have been pastoring like one 2 years, 3 years. And this is a good time, because if I had someone, Miranda, who sat with me, like I'm sitting with them, mentoring them and being that midwife, and let's say something happened to church last Sunday, they're calling me. I said, well, what did you do? What did you do? And I'll say, okay, in the wisdom of the Lord, next time, don't ask everybody your opinion. Pray about it, and then talk to your husband about it. So next for me now is I want to mentor those younger women, and also have some, I should say, some workbooks, journalized in workbooks to go along with the book, where I can kind of have some practical time with them, some role playing. Because see, Miranda, what they're going to face, I've already walked that road. And some of the way I did it, I would not have done it that way if I had to do it again. But they can avoid it, because I would be taking them into a higher, to be that more effective pastor's wife. And Miranda, as I stand here, it's a beautiful role. I love it. It's a joy to serve the people of God. I want to end on a positive note. It's a joy. It's like having children. I'm excited when it's church. I am ready to go. My husband don't have to ask me if I go into church. If I drive, I'm there before him sometime. I already opened the church, Miranda, the music playing, everything, and he just step in. See, you have to be called and anointed for it. Else, I'm not telling you sometimes I don't get tired, because I'm in the natural body. I need my rest. But it's a joy to serve. You have some people coming and going and talking bad about you. You may as well get used to that if you want to come into pastoral. They're going to talk. Anyhow, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. They're going to talk. But if God called you, he's going to keep you. He will sustain you. He will provide for you. If your husband is a true man of God and he's in pastoral, I've seen God's hand move on our lives. Physically, spiritually, financially, God did it. It's been 2 years. I haven't worked, and the Lord been providing. I've moved by faith, of faith in my life in the last 2 years. I have not seen. I'm seeing the move and the hand of God. The Lord say, because of my faithfulness. I want to encourage wives to be faithful. Don't be distracted by the Symbolites and the Tobias. They are on the wall. Trust me. They tell you if a fox, don't worry about them. Stay focused on your husband and the congregation and your assignment.
Where can people find you, and where can they get the book?
If you are watching or listening from in the Bahamas, if you are in Nassau, you can find the book at Logos Bookstore, which is located in Harbor Bay Shopping Center. Those of you that may be in the Palmdale area, Bible Books and Gifts has the book also. Book World on Mackey Street. So Nassau have 3 locations. Grand Bahama, you also have 3 locations. There is H&L, School Supplies, downtown Freeport. There's Bethel Bookstore. And there's also Bellevue Gifts on Queens Highway. And of course, those of you that are watching on Periscope, YouTube, and around the world, you are able to purchase Diary of a Pastor's Wife on my website. My website is www.eleanorlwilliams.com. And there's a red button you can press, and you can go straight to Amazon and order the book. Diary of a Pastor's Wife.
Awesome. This has been, let me just get some more comments in before we go. People are saying yes, no clicks. Truly enjoying the show tonight. God is awesome all the time. Stay focused. Uh, my auntie says she's watching. Hey, Auntie Liz, always supporting. 77 years old, and she's on this, supporting me all
Wow.
the time. Hey, Sherry. Sherry says love is the key, love and compassion. When you were talking about that, appreciating pastors' wives as gifts. Percy Wallace says true. Don't be a superwoman. Balance is important. Trust me, God understands. And so, nothing but positive comments towards what you're saying and the wisdom in which you have presented, spoken in this conversation tonight. I want to close by asking you if you could change anything that you, if you had a do over in ministry, let's put it like that. If you had a do over, an opportunity for a do over, what would that be?
If I had to do it all over again,
Not necessarily all over again, but if you had an opportunity for a do over in any particular area of ministry, not the whole thing, just any area,
okay,
what would that be? A do
okay.
over. Hmm.
I think I would have put more emphasis on dealing with single mothers. If I had the will and the power, because so many of them, Miranda, when they come to the ministry, sometimes it is so overwhelmed. It's like, you know, they desire God, but sometimes they go right back into the same moments of where they were. They'll stay for a season and then it's like they're gone again. If I had um, to do something in ministry, it will be to cradle them in my arms. I'm speaking spiritually, and to really empower them, because women have great influence if they just will find themselves in the right environment. And
Hmm.
if that's my passion. I feel it even as I speak. There's so much women out there I desire to help.
Hmm.
You know, they come with a lot of stories and excuses, but I pray for them all the time as they come into my presence. And I said, Lord, bless me to be able, even financially, to help these women. Because a lot of them, they want to come out of what they in. All is not negative and bad. They have a good desire, but they have to go back, maybe to live with that man, maybe to take some money from them. But I'm like, Lord, I desire to help them in that vein. And I know by the grace of God, that's been my heart and my prayer. And that's a future that I desire to do, to help single women to empower themselves, that they don't have to have their head down and depending on someone to support them, but the gift in them, God can bring it out and they will be victorious in every which way of their life as they give their lives to the Lord.
Awesomeness. Lavette says she's looking forward to reading the book. Hi, Cheryl. You're late, but you're here. Thanks for coming. Cicely Roberts says she would love to purchase the book. Sherry Rebecca says, do you plan to host a pastor's wives conference
Is she in
anytime?
Freeport or Nassau?
Don't know where she is, but she just asked. I have no idea. But is that something that you've thought about? And if you
That
haven't,
is something I thought about, but I was thinking about it in Freeport,
okay,
locally.
that's fine.
But if she
If it's
can,
not, if
if she
there's a
can,
need for it, then
my address is there.
mhm.
You go on the website.
Where can they reach you on social media? Where are you on social media? Where all
Social
can they
media,
find
I'm on Facebook as Eleanor Williams, and Pastor is under my name because there's another one or two Eleanor Williams, but Pastor is under my name. And
Okay.
I can be reached at email buddy, Buddy, Eleanor at hotmail.com. And I
Mhm.
can also be reached. I'm on WhatsApp also. WhatsApp 1242-443-3227.
Okay, that's awesome. So, okay, Mike Wells says, thank God for his woman servant and the words of wisdom in this book. Stephanie Burrows says, as pastors' wives, we need to support each other, also establish strong mentorship in our churches among women. Deborah Anderson Pratt says, great interview. Oh, Miranda. Okay, thanks. And congratulations to you, Pastor Eleanor. Sylvia Halstead Roll, God bless you, Lady Eleanor. Sherry Rebecca was saying she just thinks it's a great idea for you to do that. And I definitely think that is something that you should pursue vigorously,
Okay.
to have a pastor's wives conference. And the just the pressure and all the things that you've talked about, particularly for those younger ones out there. I would say anybody within the first 10 years of ministry for
Yes.
sure needs that strong heavy hand in mentorship so that they are able to come into their own
Yes.
and really understand their purpose in that particular ministry where they're serving with their husband. So, and everybody, from all indications with the comments that we've seen tonight, are definitely cheering you on and supporting you and thinking that you are that person that is able to do that, since God obviously has given you insight and allowed you to write the book. So that brings us to an end of a wonderful conversation. I'm so glad that you took the time, and you had a hectic day. Well,
Yes.
and which would be an ordinary day for you as a pastor's wife in terms of fulfilling your duties, going to church and then taking care of other ministry duties. But you made it, and I'm grateful
Yes.
that you did. And I want to say this has been such a rich conversation, and thank you so much for consenting to do this. Please get out there, find a book, Diary of a Pastor's Wife. It's available on Amazon. Hit her up in her inbox, Eleanor L. Williams. It is. She
Yes.
says
Yes.
pastors, and if you need her, if you have a pastor, a pastor's wife or someone, connect them. Connect them if you feel this is somebody good. If the connection is there, the synergy, maybe they're connected to them. And let's begin to help and mentor and share this with other people. Don't just keep it secluded in Grand Bahama or in New Providence. There's a whole world out there with probably millions of churches out there and pastors' wives who are feeling kind of alone. So make sure you connect with her and spread the word to anyone that you know who may need some mentorship. I believe she will be an excellent mentor in that vein. So thanks once again. Oh, Debbie just popped in. She says, congratulations, Debbie Heiler. Hey, Deb. Congratulations, Pastor Eleanor. Well done. Joanna Knowles, awesome conversation. Thank you so much to all of you who've swerved with me tonight. I'm back. So, guys, tune in again next week and the week after that and the week after that. This is the place where we always have adult conversations for mature audiences. So, thanks again for watching and have a wonderful night, everybody. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.